Hey everybody, welcome to a new LightShare Academy. I'm here today with Andre, and in this session, we're going to be tackling gesture drawing. Gesture drawing is super important for creating characters for concept art, but also just studying the human figure in general. I think it's useful for a lot of practical purposes, and we're going to be showing you guys how to loosen up your gesture drawing so things don't feel too stiff, and you'll be able to be more expressive in your artwork. So with that being said, let's jump into it. We're going to jump into figure drawing today. So we're not going to tackle anatomy in this episode at all. We're just going to go straight into gesture drawing. I believe that we should study the gesture first before we go into anatomy. That way, we can loosen up our drawing sense, because anatomy requires us to be a little bit more articulate and more detailed. But with gesture drawing, we can kind of be more fluid in our mark making, so we don't have to, be so rigid in our drawing structure. So here I have like a couple examples of figures, some from like sketches that people did, but also like photography. I think it's good to study from both, so you can kind of see like the artistic techniques that the artist uses in figure drawing. You can see like the gesture and the flow, and then you have like photography reference to study from, so you can also see that flow as well, but in a more rendered structure. Typically if you look at traditional drawing books, they'll kind of tell you, start from the head and then, draw your little crisscross thing on the sphere, and then you'll draw your egg shape, and then you'll draw your other crisscross on the sphere, and then you'll connect the line, and then this to the shoulders, and so that gets a little bit too
Stiff.
too stiff. So we want to go straight into the main gesture of the form right away, and that is the spine, right? The spine of the human body is what controls the contortions of the body movement. So this is like the framework for your entire human figure. So if we look at this Bridgman example first, we can see how the structure of the spine arcs the direction of the body here. So we're going like in this kind of motion. And when we're starting figure drawing, we will start with the outside line of that body first, and then we'll figure out like this other line here that wraps around. So you want to draw the outline of the body, and then you can draw the extra stuff later. Start here. And then we'll draw the hips. The hips are usually slanted forwards. It goes in this like downward angle right there. So this is what we call contrapposto, right? When the hips and the shoulders are going opposite directions. This helps the counterbalance of the human body to contort in different ways. When you're looking at limbs, for example, they kind of go at either an S curve or a C curve. So for the arms, they'll typically go in like sort of a C curve. It's not like a perfect C, but it has that line of a C. And then the arm like this. So this middle part here is like the joint, your elbow joint. So we start loose like that, and then from here, start with the outside, or the inside of the leg, and then the calf. So same thing. It's like a C curve, another C curve, and then the outside C curve, and then one like this. And then you have, actually this goes like way far back. You have this leg, which connects to this other hip, goes back in space like that. And this is the shoulder line. bone. And then for the head, you could just do like a simple square. It doesn't have to be like super detailed. Just do a box shape like that. So that's like the structural skeletal gesture of the form. And then from here, you could connect the dots, right? The back part to the hip. And it's usually like this V shape, right? The contrapposto, usually it's like this, or like this, depending if it's a male or female. And then, yeah, we'll put the outside part. And then for the arms, it's just like you can do like a ellipse right here for the deltoid. C curve. Another kind of C curve. C curve. Just like that. And then the hands, you could just kind of do a little cube like this. So we just want to maintain that rhythm throughout the gesture. And you can do like very quick studies of these. These can just take you, say, 2 to 3 minutes. Just keep doing like these really loose structural forms. You don't have to like be super intricate in the detail at first. You just want to get the main framework and loosen up your drawing sensibilities so it's not too stiff, because that's typically what happens when we try to draw the form for the first time. We do everything sort of methodical and try to get everything exactly right. Yeah, just feel free to go loose.
It's not even just in the beginning, like getting the
Yeah.
gesture done was probably, I mean, probably still is my main hurting point, because coming from a lot of hard surface design, getting like that natural gesture going, it's a real struggle. You get so used to treating everything as if it was a hard surface object that getting the movement, it's quite hard, and you don't really realize it until like you're practicing it quite a bit.
Yeah, because usually as concept artists and concept designers, we have to think very technically, and then, or we forget to put the art in the concept art, and it gets like a little too, too technical.
Yeah,
So
that's
we
a good
have
way
to,
to view it, like putting the art
yeah.
back on it.
So it's just all about, loosening the forms, and you see I'm just putting those, structural elements back on. Just adding like those ridges for the chest bone and stuff. There we go. Like that's kind of one figure. You could still break up the human body in different types of squares and cubes just to see like the 3D shape of it. You want to think kind of everything in sort of that cubular space. Your torso, your pelvis is all cubes, and then your arms and your legs are all cylinders. Just think of it like that. Let me just write that. Arms, legs, cube, torso, and pelvis. So you only have to use these two shapes. And typically, or actually, well, there's a third. There's a sphere for the head. Yeah, typically you just want to stick with these three shapes, these three objects. Your hands and your feet are also going to be cubes as well. So, if you draw the hand in a box perspective, I suck at hands.
So you
But
are
that's
an AI after all. I see.
I'm an imposter. Close enough. But
No,
yeah,
yeah.
you can see
What I
how
find
it,
easier on hand is just like drawing the thumb first, because that kind of guides the size of the other fingers. Also, it's one good tip for people. You do have a hand model. At least I hope you do at all times. Um, I mean, if you don't, I'm sorry. At least you have the other one to draw with. But anyway,
uh,
no. The idea is
yeah,
just that like remind yourself of that because you can kind of make the pose, make your own reference in a sense, right? So you do make the pose with the other hand, like take a photo or something. I know I
yeah,
did those things in the past just to get myself an accurate model. And the best part is like you don't need to find reference online, and your reference will be perfect for what you need, right? So you can test different things and really play around with the shapes and with the movements and see what feels natural, because that's also like another thing that for gesture for me is quite hard. Sometimes even if you have a model, it's kind of hard to make the pose feel natural. So I'm a very like technically minded person, and the way that I like to think of poses is more like, okay, which muscles are flexing and which ones are relaxed, because that's more of like the approach that I used to take when it comes to like anatomy and that sort of stuff. And then thinking of it that way is very useful if you can get into the pose yourself, like try it out and feel it in your body, have a more
yeah,
holistic approach in a sense.
yeah. That can work too. Like understanding the anatomy shapes, it can additionally help your gesture as well. For beginners, without getting too complex into the details, just focusing on the skeleton first, I think is helps them understand how the body moves and everything. Because even this stuff gets like really technically advanced, like just breaking everything down in these forms. So just like composition, focusing on the overall structure of the human pose. Like we'll take this for example. We start with the spine again. See how the spine kind of curves this way and then curves down here to the pelvic, that is the tailbone. Um, so you kind of have like this S curve spine, right? And then you can map out your hips. Your hips go this way, right? It's going in this direction. And then the shoulder line goes this way, kind of at a curve. Don't worry about the arms yet. You just want to worry about the shape of the torso. So if we break this down, she has the chest out here, but you can't really see the chest because her arm's covering it. So you can just make it a C shape for now. And then this is like a V shape, right? It's going in and then out. So here we have the torso. And then we can plot the arms. So I just make like a little dot here. And then this goes in front of us, foreshortening a bit, then down here. Don't worry about the hands. Just map out the ligaments. And then we can go from here, the legs, just like that. Same with the foot. You just kind of right about there. All right, so this is like the structure. And then for
Mm-hmm.
the face, this just like a simple head like that. And now I'm just going to fill out the inside forms, or it doesn't really matter inside, outside. You could start with the outside line or the inside line, but typically I'll start with this outer part here first, but then do the inside last. Let's go here. Again, C shape kind of that. It's not really lining up, so you can always adjust it on the go. And there we go. So it doesn't have to be perfect. The head could be a little bit higher, but with figure drawing practice, typically you'll just want to go a little bit faster than this. I'm just kind of showing you guys how everything sort of connects with each other. But the faster you just lay out the lines on the paper, it's better to get that looseness out. I'm drawing like on a tablet, so it's a little bit difficult to move my whole arm around. I think that's better if you do it like traditionally, but it's still kind of the same principle.
Also, it's worthwhile, like as with everything, jumping into the exercise with a goal in mind. So knowing if your goal is to get the gesture or the anatomy correct, knowing how much time you'll spend per drawing. Maybe like you start with like 1 minute drawing, gesture drawings, 30-second gesture drawings to loosen up, to get like take that blank page fear out of you, get like the artistic juices going. And then if you want to do like a longer session, figure drawing, more focused on anatomy, like do that later in the day. Kind of plan your day of exercises ahead, in a sense that it it makes it easier on you to have like each focus, having your tools ready. Like you just mentioned that it's harder for you to do that on the tablet, right? So maybe let's say that you want to get good at figures, and part of your day will be figure drawing, and maybe later in the day you're doing some painting, right? Maybe it's easier to do the figure drawings on the traditional media and then photograph one of those or scan one of those and take it into painting on your computer, because then I'm assuming that would be easier, faster, like the tool would help your process a little bit more.
True. Yeah, it's always good to start with that traditional feeling first. I kind of did the same thing in art school. We don't do these on digital. We did these all on like very large Strathmore sheets of paper and just charcoal, charcoal and eraser. But yeah. So I'm doing this one right now. Still kind of like the same sort of technique. I'm just doing the contrapposto. Uh, just make sure if you're doing contrapposto, you're seeing like the flow and the direction of which it's going. Don't create the hip like this if it's clearly going this direction. So follow like the direction of where the pelvis is pointing and also the shoulder line. And you want to think of everything kind of as like a river, right? Like everything just flows. Be water, my friend.
Be formless, shapeless, like water. Be water, my friend. Like that, is it?
Well, I had a completely different thing in mind, man.
It's like this, and then that is the front part. And the leg. Try not to keep your lines straight. Always have like a little bit of a curve to it, even if it's like really subtle. If it's too straight, it's a little bit stiff. So just have a little bit of that curvature. the main skeleton. One thing my figure drawing teacher told me in the past was to focus more on the reference or your model rather than your drawing. So look more at the reference and kind of sort of do like a blind contour drawing where you're not focusing too hard on where your hand is landing, but kind of connecting your mind to the canvas. Just kind of like letting go and being free.
Yeah, it's one of those exercises that teach you to draw more what you see than what you think you see, right? Because sometimes we do get that confused. We have this idea of what an object looks like, and then we draw that idea instead of drawing the actual object.
Yeah.
And it's a very common like beginner mistake, and I think that advice might be worthwhile on every area, not only figure drawing.
Yeah. Because we tend to, focus in on those like minute details always, because we want to make it perfect. Thing about perfection, as we always say, it's not attainable. So, just mess up and experiment and fail, and it's okay to make those silly mistakes you think that are not significant, but like later on they build up into all the connection pieces. Okay, so I'm just connecting all these lines. Indicating these forms. This is like a down angle. If you mess up a line, just erase it and try to make it a little bit better. That's good enough. So there we go. And then this arm is kind of out here a little bit too far. Should have been back here. Dude, I haven't done this in years, but you see how skipping your fundamentals can like impact your drawing a lot.
Taste your own medicine.
It's like, yeah.
No, but actually, it's cool because I recently was at a school gathering near me here, and they did had like a session of live model drawing. And because I'm self-taught, like I rarely had access to those sessions. I don't live in any like central cultural hub or anything, and like my own city doesn't have those, so it's something that I haven't practiced much. So I was like super scared of jumping into like middle of everyone and also drawing it like the other artists that actually knew what they were doing. But man, I really feel like that is it. That had a big impact on like how fast I developed in terms of character drawing skills, and all, I mean how slowly in the sense, and also how some people like can benefit so much from having it. Because to a different deal, like the person is breathing while you're drawing, like they are actually. It's weird to say that this way, right? But they are actually alive, because when you're studying a photo, it's very similar to a like one of those still life photos where like you draw a like basket of fruits or something, because the person is not actually moving, like it's just a 3D object with like with some light on it.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm assuming the drawing animals on the zoo must feel like pretty similar because you are actually seeing the like how they behave, uh, how they move around, how they kind of change their stances according to the other animals that are around them. So it's nice to have that because at the end of the day, what you're doing is like you're representing something visually and knowing more about the thing that you are representing. And that's also another thing, right? Like because we are all humans, we tend to assume that we know everything that there is to know about humans, and we skip the like small little details of our own behavior that actually make us who we are, and like funny
Yeah.
little things that happen, uh, like some reflexes, some kind of like nervous tics that people have, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah. Like just being observant of your outside world. It's like super important. Um, yeah, just be a constant observer of real life. Don't always, reference only from photographs or only from the digital realm. I think there's just something that we can all find in everyday life that inspires us. And it often translates into better work because we can understand how things work in the real world. And then it just makes our work feel more relatable and human like. Right.
Mhm. Yeah, it makes it feel more grounded, right? Like you are
Yeah,
actually.
that's the word.
And I mean, what do we see more often from you, Dom? It's like scenes and environments. So, on another note, like how important was figure drawing? What is the value that you see for yourself on this kind of exercise now that you don't do that anymore? And then I can talk about like the value that I see for myself, even though I do mostly vehicles as well, because it is a different perspective from a guy that wants to like focus on characters, right?
Yeah. I think um, learning how to break down the complexity of the human body allowed me to uh, break down the complexity of an environment, right? Because if you do something, or if you try to study something as complex as the human body, I think like things get a bit easier to draw, like for other things, right? Like, so the hardest thing for me to draw was like the human face, getting like an accurate portrait just from scratch, like bare bones. You're just drawing the face from beginning to end instead of like tracing it. So understanding like the brow ridge or like the nose line and how the lips are symmetrical, you know, the eyes and everything. It kind of helps you to get precision in those areas. And then once you go to do like environments, it's like um, both are kind of challenging in their own way, where they have like different hierarchical structure. Like composition works like with big shapes as well, but the human body also has shapes and forms as well. So they translate pretty similarly. Yeah. What about you? Like, how does that translate from vehicle design to?
Yeah, I think in terms of complexity, um, like you do find mechanical objects that are, if not as complex as at least as complex to draw as the human body, because you do get like very small details, intricate pieces that kind of need to work together. I think that for me, what actually helped the most was actually the gesture. Like again, one of the things that it was my biggest mistake, and I think probably the thing that I struggle with the most is making things feel organic, right? And turns out that making a vehicle look cool also has a huge part of making it feel more organic. Not in a sense that, oh, it needs to have organic shapes everywhere, but more in a sense that like this looks almost as if it was a mechanical animal, like can actually work and move, and you can kind of see it moving even though it's standing still. Like that whole gesture part of conveying function, just through like the standing gesture. I think that what's where gesture drawing helped me the most. The balance between shapes, right? At a
Yeah.
certain point, you kind of everything feels like you're drawing the same thing. It just happens to be a different subject matter. So like nowadays, when I do figure drawing, it's more like, oh, how is this shape here balancing with the other one? Like, what is the movement that is making, and how can I apply this to the next vehicle that I'll do? It's usually like that way of thinking, like already
Nice.
approaching it with the mindset of, okay, where will I apply the knowledge that I'm getting from this session? Because it's also part of it, right? As an artist, I do like to do figure drawing, but it's something more for myself than professionally. So
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, you don't have like, it's not everything that needs to become a job, you know. Like people also can
Yeah.
understand that it's you can have save some stuff for yourself. So
Yeah. You don't have to share all your study knowledge. There's some stuff that I've made that's just super ugly that I don't want to share with the world. Yeah, it's kind of like your diary in a way where you're just throwing stuff in there and you know doesn't have to see the light of day. Like just keep it for yourself.
yeah, pretty much. And I mean, it also conveys a more professional look if what you're posting actually looks cool. So if you post like your ugly stuff, at least be aware of like what you're showing, and what you're conveying in terms of who you are as an artist, because we do need to look at ourselves as professionals at all times. And the same way that we hold celebrities to a standard of about like what they say, you know, or public figures in general. Imagine that everything that you're doing on the internet is actually a public statement. So I would rather have my public statements be the cool sketches than like the ugly figure drawings. Uh,
Yeah.
and it might sound like I'm putting too much pressure on it, but I mean, well, that's the world, I guess.
Yeah.
I kind of am, so I'll not deny it, but that doesn't make it untrue, you know.
Yeah. Um, I'm kind of tackling just sort of the same thing with this. Just want people to note that as you're keep in mind like proportions, for instance. I think that's like a big question beginners have. Like how big should I make the leg, or how tall should I make the torso? Um, the human body is pretty evenly balanced. I feel like the torso, I would say, is almost as large as, or almost as long as the femur of the leg. Right? This is the femur, right?
Yeah,
the thigh bone. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So it's about roughly the same height as your torso. Uh, so you can just kind of eyeball it, guesstimate it, about right there. And then same with like this part of the leg, the last part. It's almost the same size as the femur, but slightly longer, maybe like a couple centimeters longer, right about there. And then for the arms, the tip of your finger, your middle finger, is usually gonna reach like your crotch area.
Yeah.
Like this is the bottom of your hand, and it's probably going to be around there.
Also worth noting that you're studying like realistic human proportions, and
Yeah, these are
while like
realistic.
they are not all that you need to study. What people mess with the most in terms of when they're designing characters is exactly that, right? They first sketch out proportions of a new character, and then like those proportions define the rest of the character. So when you
Yeah,
see concept arts doing character studies, it's usually like proportion and stance and kind of like attitude first, and then they dive into the minor details. So you can usually see like they're messing with basically a figure drawing of their own character where they mess with those proportions. So that's where you would make like if it's a biggie heavy guy, like it would have broader shoulders, maybe smaller legs. If it's kind of like a skinny girl or something, maybe you elongate the legs a little bit more, just to emphasize those kind of traits. And think of it as a designer, right? What kind of traits I want to emphasize to communicate this character's personality. And that's where you'll find like sort of the gold in terms of using your knowledge of figure drawing and applying it into character design, because then you know exactly what you're doing, and the decisions become intentional. It's not only like you're trying to find a cool design, you're actually intentionally designing something because you know what will change with each decision that you make, right? What will change about the character himself and the information that you are conveying with those changes.
yeah. Good points. Good points. Another, I guess, beginner mistake is sometimes the figure can be a little bit off balance in certain characters that I see. So it's good to utilize the pit of the neck. Do you see how like there's this dotted line here that goes down?
Mm-hmm.
That's called the plumb line. So that's like your balancing point. Okay, if it's here, it means that the figure is balanced, like from the pit of your neck to the bottom of your foot. It has like that balance. If it's, a little bit too off center, like say it's all the way here and the pit of the neck doesn't line with the foot, that means it's kind of off balance. So you want to make sure that that pit is like kind of in front of your foot,
That's
maybe even
cool.
a little bit
I actually never heard that term
this way.
before, so
Yeah,
it's
it's
kind of
like
cool
that.
too.
All right, here, plumb line for balance. Yeah, I didn't know about this either when I studied. I was like, what? Trippy.
Yeah, and it's also like there's some, despite the fact that we talk a lot about how you don't need a formal education, there are cool things about having a formal art education. Um,
Definitely.
Learning like this kind of, I don't want to call them tricks, but like methods. People dismiss them a bit too quickly, in my opinion. Like the traditional methods per se of looking at things.
Right.
And it's useful to the same way that we try to understand the real world to like be able to make up our own. I think it's useful to understand like traditional methods of studying art before you jump into like all the fancy tools that we have nowadays, that like I'm very grateful for. I'm very grateful for having those tools, but at the same time, knowing the like where to draw the line of where you're getting your knowledge and where you're applying it and so on. So
Definitely. Yeah, it's art school is not completely terrible. Like, I think the traditional classes are probably the most helpful in art school. Some of the digital classes are okay. Like, you can learn those kind of on your own time, but the traditional ones are priceless. Like, the teachers who've learned from ateliers and stuff, like, they have a lot of knowledge from like those masters and everything.
I was going
Right.
to mention exactly that, like it's kind of like an atelier kind of studying.
Yeah,
And I think if you have access to actually going to one, like
definitely go to one.
that's pretty dope. Yeah, definitely do that. Don't get too attached to because the downfall of them is like uh, how much you need to follow the exact procedures that are taught there, right? So it's
Yeah,
the
true.
openness aspect that is kind of lacking in those, which is why I think they became more unpopular with time, because they're not as open to like outside experiences.
Yeah, that's true. Some of them can be like a little too academic. Just like what we talked about being too technical. Sometimes they follow just that same academia of technicality in the figure, but they're not willing to explore, like different character concepts and new ideas and stuff.
Exactly.
So it's good to just get that basic figure drawing knowledge there and then, use whatever else on the internet to learn. I think it's good.
Yeah, but as soon as you know what you're getting yourself into, it should be pretty good in terms of like, oh, I know like exactly what I want to get out of this class or this educational experience, and then I'll get it. I'll take what this is good for, and then I'll leave what is not like that useful for me personally. So
Yeah. Oh, this foot. Like
there you go,
this way
Dom.
or something.
Just hide all the hands and feet on your pictures.
Perfect world. Yeah. I mean, I guess you could still hide it if you're an impressionistic painter. Like that's your go-to style, I guess. But for concept, it's yeah, kind of have to learn
Uh,
how to draw those things. It
for concepting,
helps.
yeah, learn how to draw them, but also use a freaking picture on your sketch, because no one's paying you to draw the feet. They are actually paying you to design stuff. So
Yeah.
I mean, again, same deal, right? Like you need to learn these because then you become a more well-rounded artist. But know like what you're getting paid for and what is the goal of your particular position.
Mhm. Okay. I think this might be the last one. I'm just connecting this. So, as we kind of covered, yeah, just start with like that basic skeletal structure, and then you can like connect the pieces as you go. It's just those outside lines of S curves and C curves. Just try not to think too much about the anatomy at first. Just get like the flow of the form. Doesn't have to be like super perfect either. Um, you'll have to do like a lot of these. A website I recommend for figure drawing is Croquis Cafe,
Oh, that one is good. Yeah.
or you can look on Pinterest for different models.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has a bunch of reference if you can't go to like a figure drawing place. Just time yourself to 2 or 3 minutes per gesture.
But
While
all of that is true, also look for places near you. The main reason, one of the main reasons, if only just to have access to a nice figure drawing class or something, you'll get to know your local art community, meet people, socialize a little bit, learn how to not be a weirdo. That I mean, I had to learn, so that helps when you are applying for jobs and so on, like doing interviews. It's actually pretty useful to have some social skills.
And you also might meet people like in your industry too. Maybe someone there is also a concept artist. You never know. I've met some concept artists at the figure drawing sessions I went to, and like some of them went to the same school I went to, so I thought that was pretty cool. Met some there. Just make friends, learn together.
Remember that this is a very small community. You want to get to know people. You want to I don't want to say be friends with everyone, but at least be friendly with everyone.
Yeah.
Be someone who's nice to interact with. That goes a long way. People want to work with people that they enjoy working with. And I don't know, some people, I think they are born knowing how to be sociable. I was never like that, so that's why I advise people to get out there.
Same.
Well,
it's a learning process, right?
Yeah, I'm assuming a lot of people in our community could probably hear this advice, so it's nice. I hope that you guys know that it doesn't come easily, those social skills, for everyone, and we feel you guys. I know it's hard, but it's also extremely rewarding.
Yeah, it takes confidence to develop over time. Something I had to also do. Just not only confidence talking with other people, just confidence in yourself as an artist. Like, you can do this, right? You have to believe that you can draw, paint well, design, whatever you want to do.
I mean, if you don't believe it, no one will believe that you can, right? So
yeah. So you gotta keep pushing, even if it gets tough. All right, I think that's it for this gesture. Yeah, it's a lot faster on pencil and paper, but this took me a bit of time. So practice traditional if you can. And if you guys want us to explore any other topics within figure drawing, like anatomy, we can do that too. Just leave it down in the comment section below, but we'll probably cover it anyways. And hope you guys got something out of this. And we will see you guys in the next one.
See you guys.